Hello friends, and welcome to another episode of Better with myself, Charlotte Wagerhall. I'm also known as Skinny Schedule. Please remember to like and subscribe to me because there's new episodes coming on weekly and you don't want to miss out. On today's episode, we have Kelly Hardy. Kelly is a teacher cum parental blogger. She blogs about her experiences of delivering IVF identical twins, Austin and Rory, their trials, tribulations, milestones and success. It really is heartwarming. In today's episode, we're talking about the IVF process. It's a really sensitive issue and it's giving insight in how the process might go if you're about to go through that experience, but also perhaps how best to support someone who's going through that process. It's an amazing story and I can't wait to get started. So a big welcome to the show, Kelly. So a big welcome onto the show, Kelly. It's a real pleasure to have you on because I've been following your story right from the start, which we worked out was about 4 years ago since the blog started. So it's really nice to have you on and talk in a little bit more detail about it. So for those that haven't followed you yet, do you want to tell a little bit more information about your blog and how Austin and Rory actually began?
Yeah, so I had identical twins. They were born 14 weeks early. And the blog really was a bit of a communication tool for friends and family because I found they had such a rubbish start that everyone was ringing, texting, asking how they are, asking how I was, how could they help. And to be honest, I spent a lot of time on the phone. I'd get in the bath and the bath would be cold before I'd even enjoyed my bath because I'd be replying to text messages and so on. So I started a blog and just put everything on there day by day and found that people could just read that, or rather than going through it 10, 12 times a day, could just say, just read the blog, get up to date, and then ring me back.
Yeah,
and
that's such a good idea, isn't it? And then they can read it in their own time. And you could go into more detail rather than like copy and paste it in the same text over and over.
Yeah,
and it originally started on Facebook, didn't it? Was it like a Facebook page to start with?
No, yeah, it was a blog to start with.
It was a blog to start with.
And once I started with the blog, I found it be like therapy. So I kept doing it, kept going on. And then that's when Facebook came. So I just thought, well, lots of people are following that I weren't really expecting, more than family and friends. So I just thought I'd, Facebook and Instagram
and it's just gone on from there, hasn't it? Yeah. So how many countries follow your blog now?
I think it's about 72 at the last counting. Yeah, I know. I didn't even know there were that many countries.
I was going to say, how many countries in the world are there? What's that percentage-wise as countries?
It's quite a lot.
That is quite a lot. I don't know that on the spot. I probably should have thought twice about asking that.
I think I looked into it. There's 202 countries or something that's recorded
so nearly
on WordPress.
Getting towards half the country in the world follow your blog.
Yeah.
That's crazy. So you get a huge following. So for twins, because they're identical, but you have got a family history of twins, but you've got a really interesting story on actually how the twins came to be twins and the differences in the type of twins, because you get stopped all the time and asked about it. So can you just clarify
I can, yeah. It's one of our biggest bugbears. So there's two types of twins, fraternal twins and identical twins. Fraternal twins are obviously not identical. They come from two eggs. So the mum might release two eggs that month and both are fertilised, or if going through IVF, a parent mum might put two eggs back.
Increase the chances.
Whereas identical twins come from one egg that then splits to make two eggs and go on to make two embryos, two babies. Obviously they share the same DNA, that's why they look the same. The really ironic thing is that my grandma is an identical twin and my husband's dad is an identical twin. But obviously it's not a genetic thing. It's just like a one-off miracle that we've made identical twins. So we kind of meet every reason for having twins. We did IVF, we have it in the family history. But the reason we have Austin and Rory, identical twins, are because it's just a one-off, one egg that we put back from IVF.
And what are the chances of that? Have you ever worked out the odds in that?
I haven't, no, but it's quite slim. I think identical twins are less, you'd see them less than you do fraternal twins.
Yeah, that's really interesting. That's something you get stopped in the streets with a lot.
That's it, all the time. And we get asked, are they identical? They'll look exactly the
same. When you look at the blog, guys, like they are like the same. They really are. So it's a bit of a strange question from that. So they're now reaching their third birthday, which
April.
Is incredible because their journey is just, they've been through so much. But you went through so much to get to this stage.
Just a bit.
So what we wanted to talk about on this episode, because we could talk so much on this topic, is sort of what you went through and your tips to actually get Austin and Rory. Because IVF is on the increase. A lot of people that follow me are going through it themselves, or have got a loved one going through it, a friend or family member, and it's not really spoken about much. So none of us really know that much about it, but also how to support people that go through it. So what sort of IVF route did you go through?
We initially tried IUI. We wanted to go straight for IVF, but to be honest, I've got a huge needle phobia. So I thought if I try IUI first, it might be a little bit less intensive. Mm-hmm. It might just give me a taster of it before we did IVF. So we did IUI first twice, and that wasn't successful.
And that tends to be their first port of call, because am I right thinking after, is it about 2 years of trying, you then go to your GP and they then tend to eliminate things first with IUI, or do they give you like a bit of a fertility test?
Yeah, it's a bit of a checkup. So they do like blood tests and internal scans and things, and see if there is anything that they can find. If there is something that they can pinpoint, then obviously they will treat that first, and then you'll go to look down the fertility route. For us, it was finding that out, but then sending us through to disucss, and we had further tests and things there. For me, it was like a hormonal thing, so I wasn't producing the right hormones to release an egg every month, which one meant it was harder to get pregnant because I didn't have the monthly chance of releasing an egg, but also I didn't have the right hormones to keep the pregnancy, hence why I had a couple of miscarriages of the process. So it was more about giving me the fake hormones via injection to sort of keep the pregnancy going past the safe zone.
The safe zone.
Yeah.
So how long were you, what was sort of your time frame before you were sort of thinking, you know what, we need a little bit of help with this? Like, was it a couple of years, or was it a few months? You were like, because you're a teacher, and as teachers do, you try and time it around school holidays and like to get the most out of your maternity. How long did you sort of leave it for you were thinking, actually, you know what, we need a little bit of help? Because I can imagine that must be really hard to like battle on and just be like, we'll be fine.
Yeah, it was just under 2 years after we got married. So we got married in 2012, June. So it was just under 2 years that we got the referral. But we had had a miscarriage quite short after getting married, in the first year of our marriage. So, and that, to be honest, was the pinpoint that made us think there was something wrong, because we did have a number of miscarriages, and it was just that I was able to get pregnant. Not as easy as some, but it was about keeping it for us. So,
and is there any? Because it's really, a lot of people don't speak about it, but actually it's really common.
It is, yeah.
How did your friends and family know that you went through that, or is that something you kept quite
Not at
quiet?
First, yeah. To be honest, we kept it all to ourselves for. We kept everything to ourselves up until going through the IVF. So we had the referral to disucss, and we went, we started on the IVF train, as it were. So once you get on it, that's it. And I think we were about 6 months in, and the pressure started to come. So, we kept getting asked a lot. We've been married a couple of years, when you're having children, we tend to do that as a society, don't we? It's probably not. It's probably something that we need to get better at, really. Before I started on the IVF train, I was the same. I would have asked yourself, you're recently married, Charlotte, are you going to have children when you're having children? People ask, don't they? And it's a pressure. And we found that a lot of people were asking us. We were getting invited to lots of, because obviously within our friend circle, we're all similar age, so lots of our friends have got young children. We get invited to christenings, birthday parties. It was just difficult. I found it hard when my friends were, announcing their pregnancies. It was difficult. So in the end, about 6 months in, I just outed myself to everyone and just shared it. And to be honest, it made it a whole lot easier. So people were probably a little bit more mindful. I didn't want them to treat me with kid gloves. Didn't want them to treat me any different. But they were probably a little bit more mindful about how I might be feeling. So that helped, definitely.
So in hindsight, do you wish you'd said earlier on in the process?
Yeah, definitely.
And I think that's something for people listening to take away if they are struggling, just to chat to people and let people know how you're feeling. And particularly even before the IVF process starts, because it's, such a huge thing to go through. You sort of need your family and friends and your close circle sort of supporting you. So you went through, so you tried for 2 years and you went through you had the tests and you worked out what the bottom was. So they started with IUI. Did you get several chances of that? Or because the
Two, it
success
was
rates are
two.
quite low with IUI, if I'm right in
It
thinking.
is quite low, yeah. And after the first one, we went back to the consultant and discussed whether we should try IUI again or whether we should go for IVF. And to be honest, the success rates were so low for IUI that we felt like we should go for IVF. So in the appointment, we actually agreed that we'd go next step would be IVF. But then I kind of scared myself. I was overthinking about the injections, overthinking about, you know, how invasive it is. So in the end, we went and did the IUI again a second time.
So you had 2 or 3 rounds
we
again?
had two.
Two rounds, so one and then,
So we had the 2 IUI and then we moved on to IVF.
And you don't have as much hormones with IUI, is that right? Is that one of the deciding factors?
Everyone's different, that's the thing. You know, I can only really talk about my journey, but IUI for me was definitely less invasive than IVF. I didn't need, you know, the hormone treatments as such. It was very scientific, because IVF is, and, you know, it's step by step along the way, but it wasn't anything like IVF.
So when you started your IVF journey, you have to inject yourself with more hormones, so that's to produce more eggs and more follicles, is that right?
Yeah, so basically you're given, I give myself the hormone injections, and that's to grow the follicles. So the follicles produce the egg. So for me, I just imagine them in my head like little Venus flytraps. Yeah. So you're just like growing them, and then they open and there's a little egg that comes out. So I can't remember the exact numbers, but you're aiming to grow follicles of a certain size, and when they are said size, they have an egg inside them.
How do they check that then, if you don't mind me asking?
No, you have an internal scan.
Sounds delightful. The things that we have to go through, women
becomes quite normal, to be honest. Like 2 or 3 times a week, it was just
2-3 times a week.
Yeah, when you're going through it, it was quite normal to, you know, inject yourself. You go, say on the Tuesday, not big enough, come back tomorrow, inject yourself, you know, come back in 2 days and keep checking, because once they get to the right size, then you have a different injection, which then releases the eggs. So for me, we did that.
How long was that time frame? So how long were you having to inject for? Because I'm sure it's different for each person.
It is. It's within a cycle. So you're talking about, you know, one go at treatment is within a monthly cycle. So you would be injecting yourself maybe 7-10 days. And then you would, if your follicles were big enough, then you would have the injection to release the eggs. For us, the first time, the follicles were growing, but they weren't big enough. So I was advised to up the level of hormones, but then rather than growing the follicles bigger, I just got more small follicles. So in the end, we had to abandon that
cycle or that month.
Yeah.
And they normally recommend, once you've had that, you then have sort of the heartbreak of, like, they ask you to have like a month or 2 months off before you try again.
Yeah, it's completely up to you, but they do say that it's better for your body to get back into your natural swing of things before starting again. So we went the second time, and I grew big enough follicles. We did the second injection, which released the eggs, and then we had egg collection. So you go into theatre, and they basically have a giant, it's quite gruesome, giant needle that they suck the eggs out with, and you can watch it on camera. So there's like a TV screen, and you're literally watching the needle go through the walls of your uterus and collecting
See, if you'd had your blog, you could have live.
I know. Can you imagine?
Here I am, Facebook Live.
It was absolutely horrific.
Oh, God. And was it painful?
It was, yeah. The worst out of everything, IVF, premature birth, all of it.
That was the worst moment.
Yeah.
And are they in there long then if it's painful, or do they give you pain?
It depends. Everyone's
reduction?
Yeah. So I can't even remember the names of all the drugs, but I had everything.
So you were like, give it to me.
Give it to me, yeah. But I later found out with a friend that had IVF. She did hers in Leeds. That the Leeds policy is that everyone that has egg collection is put to sleep, whereas at Sheffield they don't. They do it under like pain relief. It's just pain relief drugs. They don't.
But you can still feel it.
Yeah, it was horrific. They kept giving me more through my cannula.
Oh my God. Awful. And do you remember much about it? Was it all just like a blur?
No, I can remember.
When you go through trauma, you sort of blur it out, don't you?
Yeah, no, I remember. Because I said in my head, once these eggs had been put back, once we'd had the chance that we'd got from that egg collection, then I wouldn't do it again. It was 100% something I couldn't put myself through again. But we had music on. I remember listening to Ollie Murs, choice of music. And then to the left of you, there's like a window to like the lab where they freeze the embryos, or they take them on like, the little speculum plates, and they shout one as they've got one, as they're going in, two as they're going in. And then...
So they can't even do like a multiple...
No, it's just one at a time.
Of like collecting them, like, oh God, just to make it. And then you sat there in suspense and going like, body, please have as many eggs as possible. Even if it's painful, I'm guessing you're thinking, come on, 12, 13, 14, keep going.
The more is better, because, again, something I didn't really know about until I went through it is that however many you get from, that collection doesn't necessarily mean that's how many goes you get, because along the way you can lose them. So I think we got 7, and out of the 7, only 5 took, because they watch them grow in the lab. They like checking on them constantly. And then from the 5... If I just pause you a second,
so then they have to then have your husband's input, and they combine them together.
They do, yeah.
Which Ash would prefer you not to say how that got to that. But yes, so the stork came in and...
That's it, yeah.
Combined them, wand. And then out of that, only 5 out of the 7 took.
Yeah, and then they grow them. Sometimes they do them to 3 days, sometimes 5 days before they'll freeze them. So they keep them until they're at a decent enough calibre, shall we say, till they're ready to be frozen. And that they're big enough, strong enough, whatever it is. And from those 5, we only got 3. So 3 frosties, as we call them, and they were. One of them was put back live, and then the other 2 were frozen. So it could go on forever.
Gosh. There's so many different things that I want to ask, but so knowing what you know now, if someone was about to go through the egg harvesting, would you have been preferred to be put to sleep?
100%.
100%. So if anyone has that, do you have that option at Sheffield, or is it just...
I think you do, but I think it's exceptional circumstances. I don't think it's something that they do just, have a choice. I think... that
which is quite, that's
it is. I can actually remember, sure she'll not mind me mentioning it, my friend who was saying had hers in Leeds. She was actually put to sleep, but she didn't realise she was going to be put to sleep. So I'd spoken through my version of egg collection. I was like, right, you need this, take out a water bottle, take this, take that, take plenty of magazines, or take paracetamol before you go. I was trying to, prepare her for what she was going through. And then I got a text after. She's like, it's fine, I was put to sleep. So, I don't really have any tips, to be honest, other than... What
did you find helpful then after that? Because that sounds very invasive and quite traumatic, because the pain and, you're aware of it. Yeah. Even Ollie Murs coming in the room, which not put a shine on that one. So you found hot water bottle. Was it quite painful after then?
It was, yeah. I can remember going home. I got in bed with a hot water bottle. I cried. I was just so emotional. I think I wasn't
hormones as well.
It. That's it, exactly. You're so hormonal. I wasn't expecting it to be quite so evasive, and I think it's a difficult one, because if you were to get pregnant in the normal route, everything's magic and ideal, isn't it? Like, you pee on the stick and, oh wow, we're pregnant, and everything's lovely.
On the stick,
It's just so... IVF isn't that. It's so scientific. It's so... There's no room for emotion or magic. It's just
And when the medical professionals you were with, were they quite good at being warm and caring? Because I can imagine if it's their day in, day out job, and if they're quite sciencey, it tends to be quite black and white, and this is what we're doing.
Yeah. I'm laughing because the nurse, so there was a nurse for me, sat with me, squeezed my hand, give me more pain relief and all the rest of it, passing the tissues. Ash was crying as well, so was passing Ash the tissues because he couldn't bear to see me in such pain and not be able to help. But the lady that was actually doing the egg collection, the doctor, she was quite straight. She was quite, I was saying, I was like, it really hurts, and I was crying. And she was like, well, we've got quite a lot more, embrace yourself, because that's only the first one. And I was like, oh.
And some people like that, and I think for me, I need a bit more compassion.
See, if I was the one, I'd be saying, man up and get on with it. But when you're in it, it's different, isn't it?
Especially if it's that much pain.
It wasn't
and
great.
The other thing that you're not saying in this bit is that you're petrified of needles.
I am, yeah. Or I was. I'm not now. I've cured that.
Was there any tips for anyone that's about to go through that? Any tips that you found that was useful to help overcome that?
I can remember, I've still got the video now. And I probably will post it actually after this. I've never blogged about IVF, and I think this has given me like the go ahead to do it. And I've got the video of the first ever injection that I did, and I took myself upstairs into the spare room, which is now the boys' room, ironically. And I set my phone up on the windowsill to video the whole time. It's about 15 minutes it took me to do it, which isn't that bad, but then actually it was a long 15 minutes for me.
Yeah.
And I just thought, if I take myself away from any external pressures, like I didn't want Ash to be there saying, it's okay, just do it, or do you want me to do it? Or I just wanted to be left. I had a good look at the needle, you know, got my head around it, read the instructions. I tried doing it laying down on the bed to inject into my tummy, or I tried doing it standing up. And rather than, what worked for me, which sounds ridiculous, I know, is rather than me injecting the needle in, I stood up and moved my body into the needle. So it was like the opposite way, because I couldn't once I got the needle in my hand, I couldn't physically do it. So I just put myself onto the needle instead, and I did it in the end, and I can hear it now in my head. After I'd done it, I shouted down to Ash, I've done it, and I just burst out crying. And I think anyone that watches that video, if I do post it, when I post it, you'll not be able to hold the tears back at the end.
I mean, I struggle even when we're talking about all this, just because I know, like, following the blog for years, like where it's led to and stuff as well. You've never really spoken about it before, and we were talking about that a bit off camera. Is there a reason that stops you, or is that something that you sort of want to keep to yourself? Because blogging, the longer you do it, the more you share about your life, and you know, the less makeup I'm wearing and all sorts. But is that something that you think you'll talk about in the future, and something that you want the boys to read?
Definitely, I don't think it's that it was a conscious decision not to share it. I think blogging started once the boys were born, so it was about the boys, and it was about supporting friends and family with our journey, letting them know what was happening. So it wasn't really about me and my IVF journey, it was about them and their premature birth journey and all the rest of it. So I think it's just that it's took a different direction really to being about my IVF. So I think I definitely will share it. I think it's probably not been the right opportunity.
No, you've been very busy as well.
Here you are. Exclusive.
I think it's just lovely to lift sort of the lid off it and sort of raise awareness, you know, for people that are going through it, or family members that are going through it, and sort of how to support them, you know, because it is more common, and like the success rates are extremely low. So people are having to go through multiple cycles. Like under 35-year-olds, the success rate is 35% with IVF, which is a lot lower than the media sort of makes out.
That's something I've never really understood, even now, because when you look back, like going through IVF, everything is so scientific that you just don't understand how. Okay, I didn't understand. How can people get pregnant by accident when IVF is so scientific? You put the egg back on this day, it's fertilised, the egg's in the right place, the body's got the right hormone levels, everything is exactly how it should be, and it still doesn't work. It's like, how can it not work?
And that must be frustrating, because we can send people to the moon.
Yeah.
Like, you know, and like, surely there must be technologies coming through to make the whole thing easier and less traumatic. And, you know, was there any restrictions or side effects with that? Because obviously after the treatments, it was obviously pain, but also you injecting yourself with hormones. Was there anything that you had to avoid? Any side effects that you personally had?
I didn't have any side effects. I was probably a bit more emotional, but whether that was down to the extra hormones or because it is an emotional process to go through. In terms of... Sorry, repeat that again.
Sort of side effects, or like if there were any restrictions, things that you couldn't do.
That was the one, There wasn't any restrictions of what you could or couldn't do, but I think as someone going through IVF, I personally placed restrictions on myself. Like I tried to still do things. Like I still went on like friends' hen parties and things like that, but I didn't drink, or I didn't get involved in the, you know, the activity if it was something that could have put me at, you know, any harm. I always sort of treat myself as if I was carrying a baby, you know, wrapped myself in cotton wool, looked after myself, tried to eat properly. And then all the ridiculous things, if you Google, you know, how to get pregnant on IVF, eat Marmite standing on your head, you do it.
Yeah.
I didn't do that. But
I was going to say, was there any unusual ones you did? Ash came home and you did a handstand with a jar of Marmite in your hands. No.
But yeah, I tried everything, you know, that you try and give yourself the best chance as well. It's not, IVF's something that you can't just keep doing and doing and doing and doing, whether that's a financial thing or an emotional thing that you just can't keep, you know, forever in the hope that one day it works. So I think you see it as a chance and you want to give that chance the best that you can.
Absolutely, by doing everything that you can.
Exactly, yeah. Or not doing things that might harm you. Like
definitely.
tea, they said not to drink tea.
And you love tea?
Yeah.
Is it the caffeine?
I don't know. I just read it somewhere. I don't drink tea, so I didn't.
Oh my God, and you love tea. Yeah. Like your blogs talk a lot about tea as well. Like Yorkshire tea as well.
Yorkshire tea.
Is it the tannins maybe? Because I know I think tannins can have positive benefits, but I think they can have negative benefits.
Yeah.
I mean, the caffeine, were you allowed coffee or was it just particularly tea?
I don't drink coffee, so yeah.
That's pretty, that's a big thing, you know, you have tea every day.
And then when I fell pregnant, I couldn't drink tea. I could not stand it. So I didn't drink tea throughout my whole pregnancy. So by the time I'd had the boys, I couldn't wait for a cup of tea.
I bet. And now you need the caffeine,
Yeah,
like 100%.
Yeah. Keep me alive.
So is there any other like words of advice, wisdom, knowing what you know now so far that we've got to, that you would offer people about to go through or going through the process?
Obviously, I'm not an expert. I can only tell you what helped me.
Yeah, it's just
I think definitely going through it together. So obviously some people go through IVF without a partner, you know, they go through it to be a single mum, or, you know, people go through IVF for different reasons. But for me personally, having Ash there with me for every appointment was a massive thing. And I can still go on to that now as a parent. Ash was around because they were prem and they were in hospital for 99 days. Ash was there for those 99 days, so he was there the whole time. Whereas a lot of dads have the 2 week at home and then they go back to work. So I think definitely having a good relationship and having your partner there the whole time definitely helped for me, because then they were part of the conversations, part of the decision making.
They knew, and like they saw, just because it is
being
the woman
there,
that takes the hit a lot more than the man, emotionally, hormonally, you know, physically.
That's it,
you know,
exactly.
they get the sort of fairly pleasurable job in comparison.
That's it.
Which we won't talk about. But.
No, but yeah, I think definitely having Ash there the whole time, so the appointments, having all the inconveniences that I had, like having to be out of work 2-3 times a week to go and sit in the waiting room and just wait until it was your turn to go for the scan.
Were your work supportive of that?
Amazingly, yeah.
Amazing.
I couldn't have asked
and
for
what's
any more.
I mean, you might not know, but what is the HR policy with sort of things like, do they have to let you go out for IVF?
Yeah, I think it depends obviously on the workplace, but I think they have to let you go, but I think most of the places it's unpaid. I think, and that's for the female going through the IVF. For the male, I'm not sure. Again, Ash's place to work were very, very supportive, but I think from friends that have gone through it whose partners have not been able to go with them, I think their workplace has not been quite supportive. I don't think they have to let the man go.
I guess it's a whole new realm that, you know, society's changing, and, you know, like more people are going for it. I guess HR and sort of corporate law might not have caught up as much, but that's really good that you had that support. Especially, I didn't realise how frequently you would maybe have to go to a clinic or something. You know?
And obviously I was teaching then, and as an ex-teacher you'll know it's not that easy to be out of class.
No, it's not at all. To get cover, setting the cover work.
And then it's all the stress that comes with that. I mean, at the time I was teaching in Chesterfield, so living in Barnsley, it's quite a drive. Obviously Sheffield, thankfully, is in the right direction towards Chesterfield, but I would sort of get to the clinic for 8 in the morning. It's like a meat ticket system, so you get your number when you're there and you just got to wait. It really is like the cattle market. God.
And I bet that waiting room is
forever. You could be waiting like 2 hours, and it's not a nice place to be in. A lot of people don't want to talk about why they're there. Like, I did engage in some really good conversations with lots of women whilst I was there. Obviously, I'll just talk to anyone. But you can be sat next to someone. I might have been on my second lot of treatment, and the woman next to me is like, well, I'm on my 7th go, and you think, wow. And you're there naive at the beginning, expecting to just go and it work. And but yeah, definitely having your partner there through as much as possible helped me. I think being honest and open. I mean, obviously I've not blogged about the IVF yet, but that's obviously just because it's always been about Austin and Rory. But definitely being open with my circle helped. Not that I wanted anyone to treat me differently. I think I said that before, but I think more just, so if you do take a rain check on that christening, no one thinks bad of you. Everyone understands.
People need to know what you're going through.
If you do go, but you're only there for an hour and then you leave because you don't want to be around all the babies, then they understand. Baby showers, I still, to this day, have never been to a baby shower. Never.
It must be so hard as well.
Yeah. And even now I've got Austin and Rory, I still haven't been to a baby shower. It's just something, I've been invited to loads, but again, I think my friends and family understand that.
Because you didn't get all those milestones, did you?
That's
so you had 3 frosties in the end.
Yeah, I did, yeah.
So you had 1 frosty put in.
Yeah.
Was that Austin and Rory?
No, the Frosty was Austin and Rory.
So you had what? So you had 3 rounds of IUI.
Yeah.
And then your first go at IVF with that one Frosty was successful, and Austin and Rory were the result of that. Is that right?
Yeah. So I had the 2 IUIs, and then the IVF was 7 eggs, but then obviously we lost them. In the end, we only got 3 that were put back. And the final Frosty was Austin and Rory, which by some miracle split to make 2. So after all of this, I ended up with 2 beautiful little boys.
Because I'm reading up on it, depending on how many times that you've done it, I think normally they put 1 in, and then you can maybe sometimes argue for 2, or sort of push to have 2 in to increase your chances, depending on your age and your medical circumstances, to increase your chances. But then obviously the increase in multiple birth and the increase in that. So were you given the option the first time to have 2 eggs, or was it just you having 1?
No, the first one I had put back, which resulted in miscarriage. I actually asked for 2 to pick up.
Oh right, okay. So there was an extra. So the first one wasn't successful, but the second one was. So
of the 3 eggs that we had that had made it to the end, the first one we put back was successful. We had the blood test a couple of days later. Yep, pregnant, fine. Come back for 6-week scan, 8-week scan, so on. We went for the 6-week scan, so excited, thinking this is it. We've done it. Had no idea that Obviously, we understood that miscarriage is an option. It always is with every pregnancy. But I think we were just so elated to have gone through everything that we'd finally made it. And we had the scan, and we could see on the picture, like, the little shape that was there. And the lady said, "I'm really sorry, but there's no heartbeat." So obviously, to get that far and then just be dropped that bombshell wasn't nice. But then the second one didn't defrost. So then straight away, it's like, great, so we've lost another chance just like that. But they defrosted the third one, which was Austin and Rory. So, yeah.
Wow. God. And like the statistics, the odds, you'll have to work out one time what the odds are of all this. So your last Frosty worked and naturally just happened to split.
That's it, yeah. So we had the third Frosty put back, went for the blood test, the hormone levels, because obviously, if you just get pregnant normally, you just pee on a stick and you get the line, don't you? And that's that. Whereas with IVF, you have the blood test and it's all about the hormone levels. And I can remember just getting the phone call that day saying that it was positive, the hormone levels were of this level, thinking, wow, those hormone levels are high.
And was that higher than the previous one?
A lot higher, yeah.
Wow.
But I kind of just put it down to, well, maybe that other one wasn't meant to be. It wasn't a healthy pregnancy. That's why the hormone levels were lower. Obviously, I didn't really understand it at that time until looking into it. The hormone levels were quite high. We went for the 6-week scan and everything was fine. So we went back for an 8-week scan. And at that 8-week scan, it was an internal scan because obviously it's quite small, so it's better to do the internal one than the tummy one at that stage. And they said, oh, yeah, perfect little heartbeat there. And I don't know why I said it to this day. I do not know why I said it. I think it was just like in the moment. And I said, oh, well, at least we know there's only one. And I don't know why I said that, because I wanted twins. I asked for 2 to be put back in. And then Ash went, no, there's another heartbeat there. And the lady moved over and there were 2 heartbeats. So we had another lady come in to just double check that it wasn't just the angle of the camera. And that's how we found out. Twins, couldn't believe it.
How did you feel like finding that out? So you knew the hormone levels were higher, but you just so now in hindsight, was that because there was
so that was why. So
it wasn't
an indicator.
And then how did you feel about 8 weeks twins?
I think I was excited, but looking back, I also think I was scared because obviously being at that stage before and being excited and then there not being a heartbeat, whilst we had got the 2 heartbeats, we were scared that the next hurdle, the 10-week scan and the 12-week scan, we knew there was a chance to fall at the next hurdle. So I think we just kind of edged our bets a little bit.
I was going to say, I imagine that must be really hard, thinking that you never enjoy it quite as much.
No, I
just feel on like you're happy, but then you sort of always prepare yourself for the worst.
That's definitely
don't you?
a good way of describing it. I didn't enjoy any of it. Even in my pregnancy, I was really poorly. I think I was in hospital for 3.5 months of my 5.5 month pregnancy.
God. So well, I was going to come to that. So at the 8-week scan, you found out there were twins.
Yeah.
Was there a sigh of relief when you hit 12 weeks? Was there a bit of like, right, okay, this is really happening now. We're having twins.
Well, probably not. It sounds very negative, but So we had the 8-week scan. Because they were sharing a placenta, we were high risk, obviously because of previous miscarriages as well. So we had to have 2 weekly scans. So we went to Sheffield. We were consultant-led, so normal, pregnancies have a midwife. We didn't necessarily have a midwife. We had a consultant at Sheffield. So we went every 2 weeks, blood test, urine test, scans, saw the consultant, went through everything every 2 weeks. So I suppose you were always waiting for that next hurdle. So you just like, right, the date can come, everything's okay, right, just got to get to the next 2 weeks, It was never like, oh, we're pregnant, let's go and buy things and enjoy it. It was never that. And then obviously being as poorly as I were.
Yeah, because you had...
hyperemesis.
Yes. And that's what Kate Middleton had.
It is, yeah.
And that's where you're just sick a lot, am I right?
I lost so much weight. I was the smallest that I'd ever been when I was...
wow, and that was when you were pregnant with twins?
Yeah, that's it. I was still in my size 8 clothes. I had never been an 8 before that for about 10 years before that. I think I was 5.5 months pregnant when I gave birth.
And did you have a bump, much of a bump?
I had a huge bump, I had a huge bump. Bigger than most, to be honest, but the rest of me was just tiny. I spent most of it in bed or in hospital. In fact, I was given a day pass to go and get my daily fix at Sheffield. So they have a room for hyperemesis sufferers. So basically, I would go in. I'd have ketones in my urine, so I'd be severely dehydrated, really poorly, no energy. And I'd just go in, sit in a chair, hook myself up, to the cannula, put all the fluids in. As soon as I was hydrated again, I felt like I could eat. So I'd eat the toast, and then I was able to go home. And I'd go home, and 2 or 3 days later, I wouldn't be able to eat still. I'd have not eaten since then, and I would have just got more and more dehydrated, couldn't eat, more and more poorly, and then I'd go back to hospital.
And would it just strike you at any point in sickness?
Mm-hmm.
So did you have to have time off work at that point?
Yeah.
Wow.
I probably didn't even manage 4 weeks in work in my entire pregnancy, which is not great when you're a school teacher. And
there's a lot of pressure on you when you're a teacher to be in regardless of your health. And it's so unlike... And I'm not disrespecting any other job, but you have to set the cover work when you're poorly. I've literally been in the bathroom in between being sick on my work laptop, setting work because you're in a panic, and the guilt and shame because you feel like you're leaving the kids. The kids are like your family when you have a class, it's a huge pressure, isn't it?
I think I'm really lucky that I had a really supportive head at that time, and I got there when I could, I was in when I could, but in the end, she had to put the children first, and she did get a long-term supply in. So in the end, I just did my management stuff at the back of the class. I was there, I did as much as what I could. I worked from home when I could, but being in the classroom with the children, it was just
obviously, if you need to be sick, it's not a job that you can just run out of and rush to the toilet.
No. I used to do my hour drive to work with a little bucket at the side of me, and I would have it under the desk at work. It was grim.
All the lovely sides I don't tell you about. So Austin and Rory came into the world prematurely, 5.5 months.
Yeah,
and that's where
weeks.
The blogging story and everything begins. But this is, I think, this is something that we'll cover in another episode because there's just so much to talk about. Because it was just nice seeing how you got to this point and just giving people hope out there, and just how better to support people. So just to summarise, your personal formula for success.
I would say a really good relationship with your partner, so getting them involved whenever, appointments, being there every step of the way, being honest and open with your circle, so letting everyone know what you're going through. And third one, I would say...
This is where I think the sort of Yorkshire comes out on you, because I think you said to me something about basically it's a marathon and not a race.
Yeah, that's true.
There was a little bit of you that's sort of because you're such just warm, bubbly character, but you can be quite straight and you know what, just man up.
Yeah, definitely.
The Yorkshire bit comes out.
Yeah. I think you've just got to see the end of it. So if that's what you're aiming for, there's no point moaning about it. It is hard, it is tough, but that's the hand you've been dealt. So you've just got to get on with it.
I know you've got 2 beautiful boys that are approaching their 3rd birthday, and it's such a milestone, which we will talk about later. So how can people find you in the blog and learn a little bit more about Austin and Rory?
So the blog can be found at austinandrory.co.uk. We are on Facebook and Instagram at Austin and Rory. Quite an easy one, really.
Fab. And please go and check her out. It's really inspiring. It's been fascinating following them right from being delivered right to where they're at now and all the amazing milestones. And I just want to thank you for coming on and talking about. I know it's a really sensitive topic, but I just hope people listening out there or watching can just take something from that away and just really having hope and lifting the lid on it. So thank you, and let's stay tuned for part 2 where we go on to the delivery and their milestones since then. So thank you.